in conversation we talking about gangster movies, and we love gangster movies, and it was like, oh, why don't we try doing a female version of Scarface?
Oi.
Nicely done, Duchess.
Duchess.
She handled that with grace.
Real power can never be given. It has to be taken.
You've got some balls on you, princess.
It's Duchess.
Hi, Neil. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. Before everything, I just need to thank you for The Descent.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite horror movies all time.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. No, I'm very, very proud of it.
Well, let's talk about the Duchess because I think it's super fun. And in my conversation yesterday with Charlotte, we were talking about you guys been working for. This is your third project together. And I was thinking, do you need in this era of making film, do you need to have this ownership of creating your own production company, create your own scripts, and have your own, like ownership of what you're creating to have your own author kind of movie?
I think as an independent filmmaker, yes, but a lot of it has been in response to my experience on Hellboy. Because I had a really tough experience on Hellboy, working in the studio environment, a lot of interference, and my response to that afterwards was to go back to doing much smaller budget independent films on the basis that yes, what I'm sacrificing in terms of money, I'm gaining in terms of having pretty much full creative control and you say ownership over the material. And writing and directing my own stuff as opposed to directing something that somebody else has written and not being able to do anything with the script. So now it's like it's all in my hands. Not to sound egotistical, because the way that I figure it out is I will own my own shit. Yeah, I will own my own mistakes. Or I'll own it, be it good or be it bad. But at least it's mine, and whatever comes out of these things, if people don't like them, fine. But at least if I'm going to stand or fall, I'd rather stand or fall on my own ideas and my own movies and my own, instincts, because that's all we have as directors. We just got to do, what comes instinctively.
What is the biggest difference when you direct something like The Duchess, like this is small, entertaining film, and with story that probably we have seen before, like The Family Kita, this woman who's regained her power and became something more powerful and meaningful, and then going, like you mentioned, like directing something bigger in terms of character, in terms of you as a director, decide how the character is going to look and the action is going to take, because you share responsibility with Charlotte, and I wonder how that symbiosis worked with you and her.
It's a step-by-step process. We first came up with the idea of doing this film back in 2018. It's 2 years prior to COVID, all this kind of stuff. We were having sushi together somewhere, and we just, in conversation, we talking about gangster movies, and we love gangster movies, and it was like, oh, why don't we try doing a female version of Scarface, or something like that. And so the seed was planted then, and then just developed into hashing out a storyline, and then that turned into a script, and and all the time, although I do the physical writing, I'm always, we're always bouncing ideas backwards and forwards, and we have conversations every time. We make notes, and I go back and write some more, and it just kind of grows from there. And so I can't remember when we finished the script that year. We went through a number of drafts, and eventually we didn't get to make it until after COVID. But it's that process of just refining and refining and refining. And obviously we ended up making 2 other movies before we got to do Duchess. But it all fell into place in ultimately the right time in the right place, with the right team, and then now we've got like the right distributors and everything else behind it. It's serendipity of like where you end up landing.
One of the things I love about gangster movies in United Kingdom is that they're so different than the American version of being a gangster, and it has to do first with characters. Those characters, the kind of style Guy Ritchie, Matthew Vaughn, now the Duchess. The color of the movie is different. The rhythm of the movie is different. The music is different. Even the gangster dress different, and even the purpose is different. And what was the direct inspiration to create something that it kind of feels like we have seen this before, but we haven't seen a female character leading in a British movie about gangster, about that life?
Well, yeah, obviously that was a big sense. The appeal for me was to do something that we haven't seen before. But I'm hugely inspired by movies from the 70s, gangster movies from the 70s, late 60s, 70s, a lot of British films from that period. And there's also like this culture of, the British gangster establishment is split between kind of the East End of London and and Spain. They call it the Costa del Crime. It's sort of like a lot of gangsters going to retire in Spain. It's kind of what Sexy Beast like tapped into so brilliantly. And so like, let's kind of do that kind of movie. A British film doesn't always have to be dour and rainy. Let's do it in somewhere that's sunny, and let's have these gangsters who are wearing like Hawaiian shirts and stuff like that because they live in a sunny, nice place. Why are they're not going to dress down all the time? Exactly. So it was like bringing a totally different vibe to it, and I was like, let's make it colorful. Let's pump some color in there, and just get because I'm tired of seeing very dour looking British films. It's like we're in a sunny place, so we'll do it that way. So there's a lot of angles like that into it, with the music, especially. I asked the composer, I said, like, can you give it a real kind of 70s vibe to it, which he did beautifully, and brought this kind of funky, there's a lot of brass and stuff like that and percussion in it. It feels like a 70s kind of score, and then all the titles and everything like that in it as well. I just wanted to give it that kind of 70s vibe as well, because I just love that cinema.
It's just also the sense of humor, because since the first shot when she's in the room with this guy and everything happened, you can notice that probably they are like they don't know what they're doing exactly, but they have to do something, but it looks funny, but also it looks violent. And I think that fine line between what is funny, what is violent, and we need to do this. The whole movie fight with that line. And also what I love is her relationship with the men around her. Like, she had to climb and she had to gain respect through actions, not just the way she looks. And how do you work that with Charlo? Because in almost 2 hours of the movie, we see how she climbs that ladder.
Well, now that was a huge thing, was like that she can't just rely on her looks. If she can use them to her advantage, she does. But on the whole, it's like she has to prove herself to these guys all the time, and she does it through being smart, being tough, being resilient, and survivor. And there's a point at which, obviously something really traumatic happens to her. From that point onwards, to me, it was a sense that she loses a bit of her soul, and and then she becomes quite cold after this point. But because she kind of needs to, until she's fulfilled the purpose that she's, the path that she's chosen, and then at the end of it, she's kind of done. So. It was just all sorts of character beats like that getting in there. I wanted to make her tough, but I didn't want it to make it to be like an ex-soldier or something like that. I thought she's learned her trade on the streets. She's street smart, and so she's like, she does the boxing and stuff like that, which a lot of women do. So it was a great way to stay fit and know how to hit somebody if need be.
But she didn't lose her femininity. Like, she's still feminine, but like it's a tough one. And those sequences when she's fighting, like fist fighting, I don't know, like right now it's a fine line between how people's gonna react to watch a violence towards a woman on TV, but you have made this as a director, Neil. Like, you have put women in different situations, that the reckoning, the same descendant. Like, you have put women in situations like this where they have to survive through violence. So like it's home for you, basically.
Sort of. Yeah, I have been down this road a few times, but I think hopefully, like with each one, it's a different story, it's a different character, different motivations. And usually, in the case of, well, in all of them, there's pretty good motivation for their actions. They're not doing it out of spite or they're not just doing it for the pleasure of doing it. They're usually doing it to survive.
To survive, exactly. That's my point. Like you have put these women in terms of surviving, that they've been exposed to violence, even not wanting to be violent, but they have to have access to violence.
The criminal underworld is still fundamentally a man's world. So, though certainly some in real life, there are certainly some women involved in it, but they're really, really tough women. You don't mess with them. They have to be, as Stephanie Beecham's character Charlie says, like, if you want to survive in this world, you can't just be as good as the men. You've got to be better than them, and you've got to be tougher than them.
But it's a different definition of being tough, because you can't physically fight with a man and beat them. It's about attitude. It's about how do you behave, how do you play the chess and put the right pieces where it's supposed to be.
It's about attitude. It's about strategy. It's about we're being willing to go that extra length, whatever that might be, to beat your opponent. And sometimes, and that takes will. That's pure force of will.
Now you own this movie. Now you created. You started from scratch. This is not someone that hired you to do something. And I remember when I have seen most of your movies, I have seen it at home. I have access, like DVD, when I watched the Descendant many years ago, and then the part 2, everything was home, was DVD, was Blu-ray. How do you feel now that we have options as the streaming services? You as a creator, is something has changed for you, that how the audience is going to receive your film?
I do tend to make films with an audience in mind and make cinematic films. I mean, I shoot my films widescreen. I do in my head. It's always like I'm making it for a cinema, and I'm making it for a cinema audience, and to share those moments, those beats, those laughs, those shocks, whatever it is. It's unfortunate that it's hard to get movies into theaters nowadays than it used to be. But at the end of the day, it's that balance, because like more people will end up watching it at home than might have gone to the theater to see it. So more eyes are going to be on it, but whether they're not likely to have the shared experience that they would have done in the cinema. But it's a whole new way of viewing movies, and it's kind of a more, I suppose it's a more disposable commodity, in the sense that you can flick it on whenever you want. You can pause it and go and make yourself a coffee, or talk to people or whatever, or be on your phone while it's on. It's a different kind of experience, but it's an experience nonetheless. But for better or worse, I don't know, but it's a different one. But I don't think cinema isn't going to die. It's still going to be there. I think we still need that. It's not going to go away. It may change, it may evolve, but it's not going to go away, because we've had that experience when we love it, and when it works well. I was there last week watching Deadpool with a huge packed cinema, and it was absolutely amazing. So it's still going to be around. But the streaming thing, I still buy Blu-rays. I still big believer in physical. Yeah, streaming is still unreliable, because internet's unreliable, or and streaming. The films come and go. You buy it, but you don't necessarily own it. Whereas at least with a Blu-ray, I have a collection. I have it on my shelf. It's there. I own it. No one can take it away from me. So
I have a huge collection. I'm not at home, but I'll show you my home. My last question is, what do you expect that the audience take from your movie? What could be a great feedback for you? The me as a regular audience, I told you after I watched the Duchess.
I just hope that they come out having a great time, that they rooted for the character, and they feel, if they feel better than they went in, then that's a good sign. So it'll do me.
I hope someday you can sign my copy of The Descendant.
Oh, I'd love to.
Neil, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm a huge fan of your movie. Like I said, it's in my top 10 of all time of horror movies. And thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good questions. Thank you.
So this is me. Name's Scarlett.
Got some nice moves.
That's Rog McNaughton, the future love of my life.
Welcome to your new home.
You must be Scarlett.
Scarlett.
Welcome.
Tell me who you really are.
I deal in diamonds. Diamond trade is dirty and corrupt.
That's when I saw the real Rog.